not share that sentiment. Joining me now, Republican Congressman Adam Kinzinger of Illinois. Bush won the war in Iraq, let's not forget, with the surge. Obama lost the peace by premature withdrawal. Military strategists calling this Syria withdrawal a strategic mistake. After President Obama pulled troops out of Iraq, we got ISIS. So how is pulling troops out of Syria any different than what Obama did in Iraq?
It's no different. I would argue it's actually quite the same. I mean, so if you think about Iraq, in fact, that's part of the reason I ran for Congress is President Obama was promising to leave. I had just gotten back from Iraq in '09, and I knew exactly what was going to happen. I didn't know they'd change their name to ISIS, but I knew al-Qaeda would resurge. This is the situation now. We do have ISIS on the ropes. It's important to press this fight against them. They are not defeated yet, and by this announcement, it is a recruiting tool for anybody that was on the edge of considering joining ISIS, because now all that has to happen is some cleric opens up the Quran and says, look, this is the prophesied caliphate. We would have to go through some difficulty. Now is our chance to come back. I think it's a strategic mistake. We were affecting really good policy with very little footprint, and that's not even to mention the fact that we were putting a great blocking position to the aspirations of Iran.
Let's remember George W. Bush, he called it. He said, you pull troops out prematurely and some other more evil force, at the time it was al-Qaeda, right, around 9/11, right, some more evil force will rear its ugly head. He didn't know what ISIS was back then, and then what happens? ISIS emerges. There's this bipartisan group of senators that have sent a letter to the president. I want your reaction to this. They're urging him to change his mind. They are Republicans Lindsey Graham, Joni Ernst, Angus King, Tom Cotton, and Marco Rubio. Those are the Republicans. The Democrat is Senator Jeannie Shaheen. Here's an excerpt from the letter of this group that they sent to the president. If you decide to follow through with your decision to pull out troops out of Syria, any remnants of ISIS in Syria will surely renew and embolden their efforts in the region. However, ISIS is not the only threat. The brutal dictatorship of Bashar al-Assad continues to weigh heavily upon the Syrian people, and we fear that a withdrawal of our troops may embolden Bashar al-Assad to take further actions to solidify his power. It's hard to change the president's mind when he's made a decision. Who in the administration, military officials, are advising him of something like this, when every military official we've heard from so far, military official, has said it's a bad idea?
I don't think anybody, and this is what's concerning.
Is it Turkey?
Maybe. He has an absolute right to make this decision as president. I don't argue with that. But when he disregards the advice of all of his people around him, that's a little worrisome to me. I mean, he said once he knows more about ISIS than the generals, and I kind of thought that was, like, used in metaphorically, but maybe he thinks it. And so this is the concern, to say that ISIS is defeated, to do a video where you point to heaven and say the people that have passed want us to come home. You can't speak for them. The reality is we are emboldening ISIS, Iran, Russia, Bashar al-Assad, and not to mention, just very basically, we have a base in Al-Tamf that straddles a main supply route that Iran really wants so they can resupply their enemies against Israel. We would, in this theory, be vacating that, which would be a detriment to Israel.
The president says that we shouldn't be surprised by this. I mean, in his defense, before he even ran for president, he used to critique former presidents for getting involved in trying to solve all the world's problems. But we had General Jack Keane on last hour. He says we should stay the course in Syria with a modest number of troops, some 2,200 of them. Keane also believes that pulling them out puts Israel in danger. If ISIS reemerges, Iran then becomes a greater threat. The question now is, are we running the risk of putting our ally, Israel, in harm's way?
We're running the risk of putting a lot of people in harm's way, whether it's the Kurds, whether it's Israel, whether it's the greater Middle East, whether it's our word. Think of all these groups that have sided with us that we have abandoned in the past in our foreign policy mistakes. In theory, you can add the Kurds or the Syrian Defense Forces to that now. So what happens in the next war when we have to get allies and they look back at our track record? This has actually been a successful strategy, and I wish you wouldn't abandon it.
All right. Congressman Adam Kinzinger, thank you very much for talking to us.